Hey everybody, what's going on? Eric here with Switch Adapted Toys, and we're back. It's been a long time. I apologize for the delay, but we basically had to redo our studio because we had a flood in this room and we had to tear in a bunch of drywall. It's been a mess, but we're back. And we're really excited to bring you this video. We've got a brand new 3D printed Switch. This is our standard Switch. It's our version 3. It has got some great improvements from our version 2. We're gonna have videos for our Mega Switch coming soon. We've updated that as well. Stay tuned for that. But first, what we need to do is we need to print this. So I'm gonna kind of take you through the whole process here. If you are familiar with 3D printing, then this might be redundant. You could skip ahead to the assembly video if you just know what you're doing and you go get our files. You can get them on our website, switchtoys.org, or on Maker World. Just search for Switch Adapted Toys. But I want this to be a video where somebody who's never 3D printed before, could follow along and end up with a switch button. So if that's you, follow along. And if not, we'll see you later in the video. Real quick, Switch Adapted Toys is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and our mission is to make play possible for kids of all abilities. So let's go ahead and jump over to the computer, and we'll get our files and go from there. All right, so again, I want to make this video so that even if you've never 3D printed anything before, ever, you can still make this switch. Okay, so in order to do that, I feel like I need to go over some very basic 3D printing information. So if you've done this before, this is going to be redundant to you, but again, I just want to reassure everybody that they can do this as long as they have access to a 3D printer. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to get our files somehow. And you can download them a couple different places. You can get them from our website, which is www.switchtoys.org. You can also get them from a website called Maker World, which is basically a website that designers can kind of host and share their designs. And if you have a Bamboo Labs printer, Maker World is kind of built into the slicing software called Bamboo Studio. So if you search on Maker World or Bamboo Studio for Switch Adapted Toys, we should pop up. You might have to do a little searching, but you can get our files that way as well. And if you're using Bamboo Studio, it'll just load it right into your slicing software. And your slicing software basically takes your model and creates instructions for your 3D printer to make that model. And inside the slicing software, there's a bunch of settings, things that you can tinker with, and honestly, it's a little bit intimidating for someone who's never done anything. The good news is that this .3mf file has all the settings that you need kind of baked into the file. And if you have a modern 3D printer, you should be able to open this 3mf file. If for some reason you can't open this 3mf file, we did include the STL files, which is basically just the raw model, and your slicing software will definitely be able to load these. But you'll need to set a bunch of different settings, and in order to do that properly, we created this printing instructions here. So you can go through that, get all the settings for each piece set up the correct way, and you should still be able to print this. But if you are able to use the 3mf file, definitely use the 3mf file. So I'm going to just go ahead and open this up, and we have a Bamboo printer, so we use Bamboo Studios, and there we go. So everything I need is right here. We've got it separated into 2 build plates so that you can print the top separately in a different color if you like. If you don't care that it's a different color, you can just simply move this over to the same build plate and you can build the whole thing all at once. So like I said, all the settings are built in, so I really don't need to do anything. If you have a Bamboo Labs printer and you're using Bamboo Studio, you can change like the printer to your printer here and your build plate, those kind of settings you might be able to adjust, but pretty much everything else should be set up the way it needs to be set up. Okay, so all I need to do to print this build plate is to hit slice, and you can see it's going to take about an hour and a half. And I do want to show you something here. If I change this to line type, the base doesn't require any supports, neither does the spring, but the clip does require supports. That's what's in green here. You might be tempted to rotate this clip so that you don't need the supports, but by doing that, you're going to drastically reduce the strength of the clip in these posts. So keep it in this orientation and you'll be fine. So this is it. This is ready to go. My printer, I can basically just send this to my printer over Wi-Fi by hitting this print plate. If you have a modern printer, you probably can do the same. Some 3D printers, you might need to put it on an SD card or a USB drive or something like that, and physically put it into the printer to print this. But in about an hour and a half, you'll have all these parts, and then you can move on to the top. All right, so let's talk about the top for a second. And I actually get a lot of people asking questions about the top. Some people struggle to print it, but as long as you have the settings set up properly, it's really easy. But it just takes a little bit of setup. If you use the 3MF file, it'll already be set up for you. This is really for somebody that is manually putting it in and isn't using the 3MF file. So this kind of translucent ring is a support blocker. And basically anything inside this donut shape won't receive any supports. So if I'm actually going to delete this for a second, I'm going to show you. I'm going to slice this, and it's going to generate the supports to basically support the ceiling of this top. And you can see the green again is all the supports. You can see how it kind of builds around the ring and kind of on all the threads and all that. These are really hard to get out, and it tends to gum up the threads. So what we need to do, if I go back and I re-add that support blocker, again, that's going to prevent any supports from being generated inside that ring. If I slice this now, you can see that we've got kind of a gap around the ring. And it really still has no problem bridging this gap, and it works really well as long as you have that support blocker in there. The other thing I get asked about a lot is, well, why don't you just flip the whole top over and print it on its top and print it on this surface here? So flip it 180 degrees like this. I'll just show you. Why don't we just do this and flip it like that and print it like this? Well, you can do that, but you're still going to need some supports to support this ring here that's kind of floating. It's kind of hard to see with all the red, but that ring does not go. There, you can see it now. You're going to need some supports to support this ring, which isn't a huge deal. I mean, it's going to be a little hard to remove, but it's not horrible. The other problem I have found is that if I print it this way, this curved surface gets a lot rougher. And the reason for that is these layers are getting printed. Let me move it over here. These layers are being printed without any real support underneath it. Now there's enough overhang here that you don't really need to build supports here to support it. Like, your printer should be able to print this just fine, but it just often ends up being rougher and not as smooth and not as clean. That's why I always choose to print it kind of right side up with that support blocker, and you won't have any problems. So I can go ahead and slice this. You can see it'll take about an hour and 12 minutes. And all I need to do is hit print and send it off to my printer. Another thing that people request is that they want this top kind of customized. Some people might want a word on there or a picture or a different texture or something like that. That's really easy to do inside of Bamboo Studios, and I'm going to make a separate video showing you exactly how to do that. I won't take the time to show you now, but if you want to check out that video, I'll put a link in the description below. All right, so let's go back to the studio and I'll show you how to assemble the switch. All right, so now that our prints are finished, we need to remove some of the support material. There's going to be support material on the top as well as the clip. To get your print off the build plate, you can just kind of flex it like that a little bit, and then you can remove them. Okay, I'm gonna set that aside. Now our clips have got a little bit of support, so all I'm gonna do is just kind of break off the support material, making sure that I don't break these posts there. And the spring is all set, it's ready to go. And the top, we need to remove all this in the inside. Now what I like to do is use a pair of needle nose pliers, and I'll just kind of grab onto these trees and just start kind of prying it up. And you can see there, it kind of released the whole supports. So now I can kind of work underneath that and kind of pull it off. You know, I'm just trying to get this whole piece off, just like that. All right. And the base doesn't have any supports, so we're good there. Now, we're gonna use a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack cable. We sell these on our website. If you wanna pick one up there, help support what we're doing. But any mono headphone jack cable will work just fine. I really recommend that you find mono. They can be a little bit harder to find, but it makes life so much easier. And I'm gonna start by slipping the wire through the hole in the base. And you might need a pair of pliers or something just to help kind of get it out of that base. My fingers are kind of large. All right, so now if your headphone jack cable still has the outer casing on it, like this one, we need to remove that. And I'm just gonna use some wire strippers. And I'm just gonna kind of put them in the slot. I think that's 12 gauge there. And I don't need to remove a ton, maybe that's about an inch to an inch and a quarter. And I'm just gonna kind of work it around and then pull it off just like that, okay? So inside your headphone jack cable, you'll see 2 wires. All we need to do is strip back the about a 1/4 of an inch to a 1/2 inch of that casing on each of these wires. So here I'm using my 22 gauge hole. I'm just gonna slip it on there and pull off the tip. We wanna make sure we're not removing the actual wires, just the casing. All right, so your wires should look something like that. If there's like the strands are kind of spread out, you can kind of twist them together to kind of clean them up. And what I like to do now is like to put a little solder on these wires before I solder to my switch. And I'm looking for just kind of like a blob of solder. That way when I take it to the switch, I'm just gonna heat up the blob that I have on there. I feel like it's a lot more manageable. It's a lot easier to work with. So I'll show you how to do that now. All right, so all I'm gonna do is, like I said, I'm gonna just try to get a blob of solder on the ends of this wire, on the exposed part of that wire. Don't let this part intimidate you. Soldering really isn't that hard. Basically, solder is just a metal that melts really easily. The soldering iron heats up the solder in the wire and causes it to melt. And then we'll use it to make our connections. But really, like, this is not that hard. Don't let this part intimidate you. You will need a soldering iron, but this doesn't need to look pretty. As long as it makes the connection and gets the job done, that's all we need. All right, so now we're gonna solder our wires to our limit switch. Now you can see this limit switch has 3 prongs. We're only gonna solder to 2 of them. And we wanna solder to the 2 prongs that are closest to this button, okay? So this far prong is the one that we're not going to solder to. It doesn't matter which wire goes to which prong, but we just wanna do those 2 closest to the actual button. And now I'm just gonna lay my solder on that the lead there and just heat it back up, and you'll see it melts really easily. And that's it. That connection's made. It's good. Like I said, it doesn't need to look pretty. As long as it's making that connection, you're good to go. Just like that. And now's a really good time to plug in a toy and just make sure that everything works as expected before we go ahead and put it together. It's really easy at this time to kind of heat up that solder if you got the wrong ones or whatever, and move wires around. That's not a big deal. Okay, next we need to install our clip. And there is a notch on the top of this clip, and that's gonna essentially line up with our button. So I'm just gonna make sure I've got it orientated right. You know, if I'll show you what it looks like here once I get it on. So just like that, you can see that the notch in the clip lines up with the actual button on the switch. And before we install the switch, we need to install the spring. The spring, there's kind of a fatter side of the spring that goes down into the rectangle here at the bottom of the switch base. So now we can go ahead and clip our clip to the base. And if you look down at the bottom of the base, you'll see like an engraved line, and that's going to basically represent the path that the cord is going to take. So keep that in mind when you're going to clip it on there, that you want the cord kind of coming out the side here closest to the cord capture slot. But if you get confused, just look at the base. It'll show you where the cord needs to go. Okay, so what I'm going to kind of do is I'm going to use the clip to kind of push down on the spring just a little bit. And I'm going to clip on kind of one side of the clip first. Okay, just like that. And then I can just kind of press on the other side. And the posts will fit through, there's two little slots in the base. And the button should kind of bounce. Right, this kind of allows the switch to kind of give. So if someone were to really hammer down on the button, it kind of gives and nothing breaks. Okay, so that's what you should see. It should kind of bounce like that, and that's how we want it. So now what we need to do is pull out some extra cord, and there is a little slot down here at the bottom of the base. Again, everything is black, so it's kind of hard to show you. But I'm just gonna basically push my cord down into that cord capture slot, just like that. Let me see if I can kind of get it. Let me get a light so you can actually see it. All right, so maybe you can see it a little bit better now. The cord comes out, kind of fits into that slot, and then out the base. Now what we want to do to prevent somebody from yanking on this cord is we want to put a little bit of CA glue or super glue kind of in that slot to lock this cord in place. Just like that. And then if you have some, you can use some CA glue activator, and that will pretty much instantly dry that super glue. And it doesn't take much, just a little squirt. All right, so that's pretty much it. I don't mean to toot our own horn here, but I really like this switch. What's great about it is it requires very little force to activate, and even like off-center presses still activate the switch. So honestly, it rivals a lot of the name brand switches out there, and it costs a fraction of the cost. If you don't have access to a 3D printer, we do sell kits on our website. We sell the 3D printed parts as well as all the components on our website. So if you don't have access to a 3D printer, but you still want to do it yourself, you can pick up a kit on our website. If you just need the limit switch and the cord, we sell all the components on our website. And if you want a fully assembled switch, we sell on our site as well. And all the proceeds help support what we're doing here. And what's really cool is if you go to our website and sign up for our newsletter, you'll receive a code to receive a free mini switch. Switch Adapted Toys is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we can't do what we're doing here, bringing these free resources, without the support of our community. So we want to thank everyone who has supported us. If you're interested in learning more about Switch Adapted Toys, you could visit our website, switchtoys.org. And if you've got a group or an organization and you want to adapt toys locally and for kids in your community, you could look into forming what we call a Switch chapter. We've got chapters all across the country. We even have some internationally. And basically, the whole goal of the Switch chapters is to provide free toys, adapted toys, to kids in their communities. So if this is something that you are interested in spearheading, there's a form you can fill out on our website, and we'll kind of talk you through that whole process so that you can serve the kids in your community that way. Lastly, if you're interested in a Switch Adapted toy, we do have some on our website, already adapted, ready to go. The proceeds help support what we're doing. We try to provide them as low cost as possible. So if you're looking for a Switch Adapted toy, check out our website. We've got some there. I'll adapt them for you, send it out, and you'll be good to go. Well, that's it. I'm Eric with Switch Adapted Toys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Switch Adapted Toys, making play possible.